You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. Welcome to Taco Tuesday, because that's what it is. It's always about food. Taco Tuesday. Hit it, man.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
Yeah. Well, now you're all hungry, but hopefully you're hungry with some news too, because we got plenty of that. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about today, but first of all, that is JP pushing buttons on the board. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm great. How about you? This Taco
good.
Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. Yeah, I'm good. Glad to be back. Thank you for holding the fort yesterday with the Ladies of Sticks. That was I heard it got lively a couple of times.
Yeah, somebody called in. Kareem called
Somebody,
in.
Kareem.
You know, yeah.
Somebody whose name rhymes with Kareem.
Yeah, made it spicy and interesting. But I think it was a good show. How was your appearance with? Weren't you on with a Democrat on a panel?
I was on News Nation on a panel with a Democrat. I would say that I got the lion's share of the talk time, so that worked out well. But yeah, thank you for doing all that, JP, and thank you to Emily Jones and to Lee from Huntsville for being in studio yesterday, holding down the fort and bringing their friend Dee in, having a few other things lined up, and just basically making it all work. I appreciate the fact that we've got so many folks that I would say sort of keep the flow going, part of the Right Side Ruffian family. And anyway, and they are certainly that. Glad to be back in studio, though. We got a great show lined up for you. No guests today, intentionally. No guests because the news is so thick that I feel like I got to spend time unpacking some stuff. So with that being said, I got a triple dipper. Hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, loose lips, sink ships. Well, that mantra's been around for a long time, like since World War II. But we had a situation just in the last few days where it would appear that at the very least some sensitive, if not secret information was put out in a manner that it shouldn't have been. And the press got hold of it when they shouldn't have. And we'll talk about it. Loose lips sink ships. That's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Stand by for that. Number 2, the Democrat disarray. Y'all, the Democrats are absolutely flagging right now. They are sucking wind. They are literally on their heels. They are in such disarray right now, they can't even tell which way's up. They couldn't find their backside with both hands. There, I've got all the phrases. But the bottom line is this. The Dems are in disarray, and we're going to talk about it. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, Doge doings. Oh yeah, the Doge doings. Doge has been doing, and lots of doings are being done by the Doge. So we're going to talk about where are they making cuts? What are they finding? Have they found fraud? It would appear so. What are we looking at in terms of like the streamlining of government, and is it going to hold up? All that. Number 3, Triple Dipper, Doge doings. So stand by for that. All right, let me jump on into the Right Side Way opening monologue for the day. Appreciate those of you who actually asked for a copy of yesterday's monologue, and thank you very much. And don't forget, attorney Stan McDonald is the sponsor daily of the Right Side Way monologue. Stan McDonald, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. I will tell you more about him momentarily, but Stan McDonald is our Right Side Way sponsor. So yeah, I mentioned it a minute ago with JP, but yesterday I made an appearance on News Nation, and I was put on a panel with a former Democrat congressman, and he had a great resume. I mean, the guy was a law school grad, a former Marine, a Democrat who ran for Congress and then lost his bid in the U.S. Senate race against John Fetterman. Seemed like a sharp guy. I mean, he was well-spoken. I appreciate his military service. But basically, while I might identify with some of his background, or maybe even think he's all right as a dude, I don't identify at all with his policies. And there was no way his personality was ever going to win me over to that, because I know what I believe and he doesn't believe the same as me. Therefore, given the opportunity, I would never find myself voting for him. Well, look, I hear it all the time, right? People say, I vote straight ticket, or I vote for the person, not the party. Or the other side of that three-sided coin, I vote for the one that has the best policies. Okay, I'm going to suggest to you there has to be a little bit of all of the above. So I saw an article a while back about the Cheney family. Oh, Lord, yeah, I did. The Cheney family and their complete disdain now for President Trump. Former Vice President Dick Cheney even did a campaign ad for his daughter Liz in which he declared that Trump was a traitor. That's some stiff words from a man who should know the value and the import of such words, right? The article that I read even went on to question the Cheney family's all-out assault against Trump. I mean, are they even still Republicans? Well, arguably, Liz Cheney and certainly Dick Cheney would fall into what is often referred to as the establishment or the legacy wing of the GOP. But don't they even care about conservative policies? I mean, you would think so. I mean, are they really of the mind that we would have been better off if we had had more of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? Well, apparently so, since Liz Cheney actually endorsed Kamala Harris, which would have been Biden 2.0, really. It certainly seems that policy was lost to the ultimate bugaboo of Trump's personality with the Cheneys. So apparently they were voting pretty much on personality. All right, let's break it down a bit. Let's first talk about party politics. So I'm a longtime Republican myself, right? Many years as a party member. I'm a county party chairman, a member of the state executive committee, an elected Republican. For those that vote straight ticket, there's sometimes the complaints that, party over politics influence their vote. Well, so what? Is that bad? Well, it depends. You see, when someone runs on a party ticket, you at least have the means of knowing that they've been sort of pre-cleared. They have acknowledged that there's a party platform. They have aligned themselves with a team, so to speak. They've not worked for the other party in recent history. They're allegedly lined up with the certain values that the party platform they've chosen espouses. And the same with the others on the other ticket. So, for instance, if someone says to you they're a Democrat, but they don't align with Joe Biden, then you have to ask why they're a Democrat. I remember one former state representative who spent years as a Democrat down in Montgomery tried to tell me once, well, I really don't align with the bulk of the Democrats, and that he even supposedly caucused with Republicans. My question with him was, so why are you still riding for that brand? Look, there's going to be those folks who occasionally may cross a line, right? Maybe they're for gay marriage but opposed to government big spending. Or perhaps they're all for green energy mandates, but they also believe in strong national defense. But to be honest, those kind of crossover voters are getting fewer and fewer by the day. I once spoke to a man whose daughter had unsuccessfully run for office as an independent. He told me that he told her later, that as she was lamenting her heavy loss at the polls, that she ought to look at the numbers and realize there was no straight ticket vote for her side, that every single person who voted for her was literally voting just for her. Okay, that's true. I'm sure that's a way to maybe help assuage the pain of her epic loss, but the fact remains she also ran without a team. You see, when you join a team, like a party, you reap the benefits of being on the team. Likewise, you are to some degree accountable to that team. So, if you're voting straight ticket, I got no issue with you voting straight ticket unless I can clearly see that some members of the team's ticket are not who they say they are. And that's why, me personally, I feel like we have to dig into policy. We all do. What does the person actually stand for? What will they do? If they've been in office before, then tell me what they've already done. What are their policies? You see, I care deeply about policy. I can't imagine ever voting for a Democrat myself, but I also care about who is claiming the mantle of being a member of either party. What are their policies? What will they do? So yesterday on News Nation, the Democrat that I was pitted against, he decided to try and go down the road of hating Elon Musk. He made the tired, worn-out, kind of useless point that the American people didn't elect Elon Musk. Well, yes, we did. Of course we did. Because we overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, who then picks his team full of people that were not on the ballot. Every member of his cabinet, all of his czars, his top generals on the Joint Chiefs, the judicial appointments, the members of the National Security Council, and yes, even Elon Musk, none of them were voted on directly. But they are an absolute extension of Trump policies that the American people heard him talk about on the campaign trail and say that he would promote, and we cared about it, so we voted. So therefore, ergo, Elon Musk is an extension of policy. Plain and simple. Donald Trump won both the popular vote and the electoral vote. We wanted his policies, so therefore we did in fact vote for the people he hired to put the policies in place. All right, policy, it's huge. Personality, it means something, but it's certainly not everything. But I got to tell you, party also means something, and being on a team means something. Well, the interesting thing is, let's take a look back at the 2020 presidential election cycle. Oh, geez, do we have to? Well, anyway, we're going to. The 2020 election cycle, Biden and every member of the Democrat field told us exactly what they were going to do. I mean, sure, there were some whoppers about being like a unifier and working across the aisle, but the truth is, we already had 40 years of history on Joe Biden policies. He had presided over the Senate for Obamacare votes as the vice president. His foreign policy was awful. We all knew it. He loathed strong military action. He literally gave us ISIS as an enemy when Biden abandoned Iraq without a plan. Biden was known for being a gaffe master, saying stupid stuff all the time and embarrassing people in his inner circle by his inability to stop saying stupid stuff. But his policies? Policies. The policies of a candidate are of paramount importance. I got to tell you, we knew what Biden's policies were, and people voted for him anyway, which is amazing. If the Cheneys or anybody else for that matter thought for a minute that Trump's policies would have been worse than Biden's in the last election, well, then I question whether they were really Republicans to begin with. It appears to me the Cheneys and other members of the Never Trump crowd, they got lost along the way. They incubated and festered such a hatred of Trump's personality, they were willing to sacrifice both the party and the policy. That's why you can't just do one. You have to have a big wrap-up of all three: party, policy, and personality. So let me talk about personality again just for a minute. That brings us to those who like to say, well, I vote for the person. Okay, I understand that elections are in some ways a popularity contest. They are, especially in the primary season. Half a dozen candidates stand up there in front of you. They're all running commercials on your TV. They're all mailing stuff to your house. And oh, by the way, that's about to start again as the governor's elections kick off here in the next few months. And you find yourself getting caught up in the whole idea of which one smiled better, or which one seemed more genuine, or which one came across too grumpy, or posted something you didn't like on Facebook. See, personality, it plays a part in the election. That's not unreasonable. I get it. But it can become a trap if that's all that a voter looks at. Personality cannot be the best indicator of whether or not someone is most qualified to serve in public office. Look back at 2020. The presidential election of 2020 came down largely on the question of Trump's personality. I have no issue with Democrats who voted for their candidate. They're Democrats. I get that so-called independents may have had likes and dislikes and weren't wed to a team so they could be flexible. But what I definitely have issues with are the Never Trump Republicans. Those so-called team players who sacrificed everything they said they believed in, every party platform, every policy position, all because they were so swept up in the idea that Trump's personality was bad for the party, bad for the nation. Well, how'd that work out? It's as if the politics of middle school cliques took over for some of those longtime players and pundits who we used to listen to. People like Bill Kristol and David French, and David Frum. Look, I will readily admit that Trump's personality can be brash and at times bombastic, and occasionally even I cringe at his mean tweets. Well, so what? In the end, I would rather have a strong, sometimes rude personality running policies that I believe in as a part of the party that I'm a member of in order to, best get to where we are now. That's why it has to be all of the above. You can't just say, well, I only vote the person. You can't just say, well, I only vote the party. And you also can't say, well, I just vote the policies, because sometimes the policies can be carried by an idiot who's in your party, and you got to watch out. You got to find the person who is electable as a personality, who has the ability to join the team and be a part of the team and help run the team as a party, and oh, by the way, carries policies that we really care about. It's politics, it's policy, it's personality. And I rank them that way in the order of their importance first. Policy first, party next, and then some of the personality. This ain't middle school. It's got to be bigger. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, I feel like I ran long on that one, but the bottom line is this. You're about to see the governor's race kick off. And I was even in a text string with some folks earlier who were already sort of dinging this and dinging that. And I'm thinking, man, y'all better wake up and realize it's outside the bubble a little bit. You got to talk about what people care about, and you got to talk about what people will vote for, and you also got to talk about the party. All of the above. Politics, policy, and personality. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, we're going to be jumping into the topics here pretty soon, but I got to tell you before I do that, attorney Stan McDonald is the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue every single day. Attorney Stan McDonald, he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. And listen, I say it all the time, but it's true. Not only is Stan the kind of guy who's going to advocate for your legal needs and rights, but he's been an absolute warrior over the years for all the policies and politics that Rightside ruffians care about because he's one of us. He's like an OG ruffian. So attorney Stan McDonald, yeah, he's represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions. He knows how to represent you in court, in front of federal, local, state, doesn't matter. And when Stan McDonald's on your side, I always say you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So I'm going to tell you how to reach him now. If you need an attorney in North Alabama, here's his phone number. You ready? Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. His phone number is 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And the thing I got to do. Let's see if I can get it right this time. No representation made. The quality legal service be performed is granted. The quality legal service performed with other lawyers. Dang.
That was like an 8-8 right there.
I came back strong, dude.
That was nice.
Come on. All right, short break because I ran long on the monologue, but we will take a break momentarily and come back and jump right in because, I mean, even on the news right now, I'm watching as former CIA Director Mike Pompeo is talking about the classified info potential in the signal messages. If you haven't heard the story, I'll give you the breakdown on it. Here's what I need from y'all. There's a bunch of folks in this audience I know for a fact who have either had clearance level activity in their life in the past or they currently do now. I would like your input. What do you think about this? Text it in, call it in, 833-687-4448. Was this a huge gaffe? Is it excusable neglect? Is it something that we should not shake our heads at, but also not like the end of the world? Or is it the kind of thing that is like the downfall of the Trump administration and we should be having heads roll? I got my thoughts. I want to hear yours. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. And it's going to be interesting. I suspect there'll be a mixed bag of opinions on this. But yeah, we're going to unpack it. We're going to unpack it, and I'm going to give you some thoughts that may really help flesh it out for you. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down to some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to the loveliest little town on the plains we like to call Auburn, stretching across the border to what is now renamed Fort Benning, Georgia. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in, just for good measure. All right, good to be back with you today. Thank you all for your leave of me yesterday as I was on a national broadcast, and then the ladies of Styx ran the show and did an excellent job. I tell you what's nice is having the ability to call on people like that. Anyway, just saying. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. Brand spanking new in the text line is Connor from Huntsville. Connor, we're glad you're there. He's got a preemptive text on one of my dippers for later in the show. He says, hey, Phil, even though the Democrat Party's in disarray and the Republicans have an opportunity, the Republican Party also never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. I do not argue that one, brother.
Pulling defeat out of the jaws of victory.
That's exactly right. That is... And you know why? I tell you what, here's one of the reasons, Connor, and I would say this to anybody. In fact, I think I even said it to John Wall when he was in studio, and he's the chairman of the state party, is what we got to watch is that... typically speaking, you play up to the level of your competition. And in my opinion, the Republicans have no true competition in Alabama. And so as a rule, they tend to get fat and lazy because of it. So instead of playing down, guys, how about you play up? Just, and one day you're going to have competition from the Democrats again, and you're not going to be ready because you spent so much time playing down.
100%.
Oh, man. Listen. Okay, what else we got? Mike from Florence says, not so long ago, turning down the volume on the president and turning up the volume on Rightside was a simple reflex, a no-brainer. Now, he said the president's on live and he's coherent, and as Trump always does, taking lots of questions, providing lots of sensible and thorough answers. My brain and my ears hurt from trying to listen to both. Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Just remember, we're better live. Ken from Harvest says, I agree with everything you said about the Never-Trumpers, but they did serve a purpose. Would the current Trump administration be as laser-focused as they are if the Never-Trumpers had not been such obstacles during his first term? That's a great point. I said that too. I think that we do have the better version of Trump than we would have had he won in 2020. I say that because he came back with such a mandate, such an absolute, just bum rush on anything that was standing in the way. He's wasting no time, and it's obvious that a part of that is because he's had 4 years to work up a good mad, and he's in there right now just wreaking havoc on what the Democrats love, which is money and power. So, Ken, I totally agree with you. I do think that we are seeing the better version of Trump, in part because of the Never-Trumpers of 2020. John from Huntsville says, Phil, awesome monologue. Welcome back. Also, do you really believe any of this nonsense they're trying to say these national security officials did? I'm pretty sure Kareem will be calling in again. Let him. We'll talk about it. And then Kyle from Madison says, for the signal controversy, says, the more I'm hearing, the more it's sounding like a Vindman-type leak setup. Otherwise, what would there have been to discuss at the congressional hearings today? Interesting point. Jerry from Decatur says, excellent monologue, Phil. That's a short summary. Thank you, sir. So that's a short summary of what was taught in civics class back in the 60s. What's policy? What's a plank? What's a platform? Well, it's what a candidate stands on. It's what the candidate believes. It's what's best for the country, which is the direction the person is leading in, while at the same time holding him or her accountable to God is the right side, airborne. Jerry, thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right, let's do this. Let's jump into this thing about loose lips sink ships. Loose lips sink. Oh, hang on, Yellow Dog Mike just texted in. This should be fun.
Right on cue.
Just let me see. It's like a train wreck. I got to look. Yellow Dog Mike says, should be a hoot hearing you MAGA guys crawfish about security leaks. You guys would be building a bonfire if a Dem administration did this. Total hypocrites, all of you. Okay, Yellow Dog Mike, I got 2 words for you. Hillary's server.
That's what I was just about to say.
Hillary's server. like lots and lots and lots of stuff on Hillary's server, which, oh, by the way, between BleachBit and the Hammer, she avoided a lot of accountability.
And by the way, Hillary's was way worse than this.
She actually did a lot of state business, classified, over time, and then left it unattended in a server in a closet at her house. So, Yellow Dog Mike, you can go pound sand, man. And no, by the way, I'm not going to be excusing anybody for making a stupid mistake. Let's talk about this. All right, let's break this down. First of all, let me talk about the modern age that we're in. Because the phrase loose lips sink ships came in World War II, and it came at a time when there was concern because of, Nazi spies and that kind of thing in Europe as you had, troops home on leave and they're talking about where they're going next and what they've done already, and they're sitting around a bar having a pint, at the pub, and next thing you know, some guy's chatting them up and saying, "Thank you, Yank," and turns out it's a German spy, and then they get the information and they pass it back to the chain, and yeah, okay, that was real. Loose lips sink ships. That's what the phrase that was on all of the war posters, reminding troops and even civilians to be careful who they talk to. I mean, if you wrote letters home from the war, you might have to send them through a censor because they would check out information about, where you were and what you had done and what your losses were. So, yeah, letters would come home redacted. That being said, we live in a time now when troops can call home from the war. I did, and that was 20 years ago. My first tour in Afghanistan was the beginning of the war. That was the first time the U.S. has gone to war where there was such a level of connectivity that troops are able to call home as a part of their daily their daily activities. And we had, in that case, like when I routed through a special operations base out of Uzbekistan called K2, Karshi-Khanabad, K2, we had these phone banks set up. They had them down at Bagram too. You could walk in, wait in line, the next booth would open up, you'd go sit over there, you had this crazy phone, you had to go through a connecting device, and then it would take you to the far side, the operator would then connect you to home, and you could talk for, several minutes. Very cool. Still got to watch what you say. There were signs all over the place, be careful what you say on the phone. No operational information. No, remember OPSEC, all that kind of stuff. And then my team is out there in the remote regions. But we had 2 Iridium satellite phones, the kind where you actually have to fold up the antenna and pull it up on the phone and, dial like 50 different numbers to be able to get to a line. But my guys were able to call home periodically. And so about twice a week from a, rooftop of our safe house in a remote corner of Afghanistan, away from any military presence except for my team, I would call home and talk to Charlene. A couple of times she heard things blow up. It was kind of weird. But you know what? There was that connectivity. We even got it set up to where we could send emails, and we had the ability to do satellite burst. And so we would send out satellite twice a day, receive messages from our headquarters and send them back out, and also receive messages from home and send them back out. Connectivity is different. By the time I got to Iraq in 2004, it was crazy to the point that you had whole internet cafes for troops. Some guys had their own laptops, and then next thing you know, people are buying cell phones, and then pretty soon you've got the war is like you're like down the street from home almost. It's almost like you just went to work and you're calling home every day. To the point that here's a situation we had. We had to declare comms blackouts at times, especially if there was a loss of one of our troops. And I'll never forget more than once, because my battalion took some serious hits. I'll never forget more than once in central Baghdad, the comms blackout would go into effect, and everybody knew you put your cell phones down. They turned off the internet connectivity at the internet cafe. There was no Wi-Fi anywhere on post except for official business, and you did not communicate with anyone from home. The interesting dynamic was people back home got used to that, and they knew that if there was a comms blackout and they didn't hear from you for a few days, it meant something bad had happened. And people would sit on pins and needles to find out what it was. The reason why they had to do that was because we had a situation where one of the family members found out in the grocery store about the loss of one of their family members that was downrange. They found out because someone called home and said, "You won't believe it, man, we lost, I'm making up a name here, but we lost John, and John's gone, and it's horrible." and John's family hadn't been notified yet. And so when the person who'd received that from their troop was in the grocery store, they saw John's mom and walked up and said, "We're so sorry about John." And she said, "What do you mean?" Well, how horrible is that? It wasn't meant to be anything. It wasn't meant to be anything other than a discussion. But the point there is that loose lips sink ships. The point there is that a piece of information got out that shouldn't have. And today's day, we are so connected. I mean, between email and apps on the phones and social media and even being able to, it's common knowledge that one of the ways that pedophiles approach kids, and oh, by the way, drug cartels communicate information, is through video gaming. They literally go in and set up a chat room inside of a video game and they'll talk on Call of Duty. And that's how they pass information back and forth. These things happen constantly. Doesn't matter whether you're on WhatsApp or Signal or texting via your phone or sending an email or whatever. The bottom line is we are more connected now than we have ever been in the history of ever. And that brings its own serious implications. That brings an extra layer of caution, which, oh, by the way, even the slightest mishap can overcome. And we have a situation that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, in which one of those mishaps, and I'm thinking it's a mishap, they're saying it's a mishap, part of me wonders, but I'm looking at it and going, how in God's name did we start talking about stuff on Signal that appears to be of at least a classified, if not a secret nature, and a member of the press got hold of it? What the heck? All right, bottom line is I'm going to unpack this for you, but I hope you got the sense I'm trying to portray here about having been in places where connectivity is so real that you have to actually shut it down to prevent the spillage, we call it, spillage of classified information. All right, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to come right back. Loose lips, sink ships. That's where we are. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so let me also label a couple of things for you. There's a lot of talk about from the talking heads in the media about things they know nothing about. Well, this is all secret. Not necessarily. I don't know. Here's the point. They don't know either. There are different levels of classification. For instance, let me back up. There are different levels of classification. You're going to have, at the very least, you're going to have certain things that are considered sensitive, and either sensitive/no foreign, which is for no foreign. It cannot be transmitted to foreign entities. So sensitive, no foreign. It's a classification level that's below secret. It just means, hey, be real careful with this. That's it's not the kind of thing you're going to talk about. Don't let it out. It's not real protected, but it is. And the next thing you're going to have is base level secret. Base level secret. And it's amazing how many people have a secret clearance. Just to be a second lieutenant in the Army, you had to have a secret clearance. It didn't matter whether you were in the environment or not. You had to be able to be trusted. And so you had to have the background checks and the requisite, information availability. So all said and done, you've got sensitive, no foreign. You've got secret, and then you get into top secret. And then you get into parts of where I used to work, TSSCI. So the top secret with secure compartmented information is going to wind up being a much higher level. It's like a layer up from TS. And then you're going to have people that are read onto the SAPs. And that's going to be where you got special access programs. And those are compartmentalized so that only certain people, it's like an eyes only kind of thing. So you got TSSCI SAP, and I've worked in those environments, and I'll just tell you, they have a lot of protocols. They have things they call the air gap. You don't have spillage. You do not have something that's on the green computer ever allowed to use the red computer. I had 2 workstations at my desk. One was red, one was green. You had to log into them separately. If you had something that was classified, it had to be emailed from the SIPR side, the high side, if you will, the red side. If you had something that was, sensitive or less, you could go ahead and send it on the green side as long as you knew who you were sending it to. All this to say, there are protocols and there are layers and there are things that have classification, and the classification process, by the way, may carry an actual cover sheet that's going to be branded and tell you exactly what you got in your hands. But then you have the people who have access to everything, and they should, and those are the ones that were on this text that we're talking about, this Signal being an app. If you're not familiar, if you're one of those who's never used it before, Signal is an app that is highly encrypted. You can actually, it basically sends out messages that can be encrypted and then thereafter be done away with, so they cannot be recouped. They're not stored out there in the cloud forever and ever. Amen. Signal is actually, I'm surprised to find out, but Signal is actually pre-approved for use in certain government functions. We're told right now that Signal was pre-approved for use in this government function. Okay, having said all that, what happened? Well, what we know right now is a guy named Jeffrey Goldberg. He's an assistant editor-in-chief, or actually the editor-in-chief for The Atlantic. The Atlantic is a liberal rag, all right? The Atlantic has been the progenitor of everything from Russia to, swearing that Trump is a racist. And, there is nothing conservative about The Atlantic. Somehow or another, Jeffrey Goldberg was tagged into a group in Signal. The question is how. He says he got and you have to be invited in. You've been added to or invited in, to log into the Signal group, and then you're a member of the group and only the administrators can get you in. Well, he got the invitation, he says, from what the Signal accounts said was Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor, former Congressman, Green Beret, Michael Waltz. By the way, Michael Waltz, if anybody understands classifications, it's the former Green Beret Congressman / now National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz. So how this happened, we don't know. I'll get to that in a minute. But what did happen, and what we're understanding, because it has been confirmed, is that Michael Waltz's account allegedly sent an invite to Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic And suddenly he realized he was in a group that had 18 members, including people like Michael Waltz, Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Rubio, Secretary of Defense Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. It had Stephen Miller in it. It's like, okay, these are the players. Well, he says, by the way, he really didn't believe it was real at first. I get that. I also don't believe that. Just saying. I think he saw something happen and he's like, holy crap, I've got the golden chalice here. I am not letting this go till I know what's going on. And then there's only one article that I've seen that said this. Where is the one that I've got? The one I'm looking at here is from Fox. Shoot, where is it? One of these that I've got, maybe Daily Caller, is that he watched it for days. This was not just a few hours. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. I don't know exactly how many days, but I think it was like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I think the thread said something about over the next 72 hours. So I think 72
Yes.
hours before the event is when it started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, like right here's one account in Fox that says that he looked at it and it says the following day, according to Goldberg, he began to receive what he thought was highly sensitive information about operational details about strikes against the Houthi rebels. Okay, first of all, ain't nobody complaining about the Houthi rebels getting bombed. They need to be bombed. They should have been bombed during the Biden administration. It was a total, complete mess the way they've been just tearing up the Suez Canal and destroying shipping and commerce. But that being said, the Biden administration did nothing, so the Trump administration is. The question is, what was communicated on the Signal app? I'm going to give you more details when we get back, and then we're going to unpack what's being said about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2, which is inexplicable. Where did hour number 1 go? How did it? I haven't even got through Dipper 1 yet.
It's gone.
It's just like, I like the sound effect.
Ta-da.
Hey, let me finish up giving you the background, and then I think JP was looking up something for us during the break. We'll catch that here in a second. But so what we know is this. The Signal is an app. Signal is an app. If you're not familiar, it's an encrypted app you can use. It's actually been pre-approved for use in certain environments in the government. It is considered to be highly encrypted and typically secure, although what is really in general? I mean, everything can be hacked. But in this case, it wasn't a hack. This was also, by the way, not a case of being a confidential informant that you have to protect. Keep that in mind. A member of the media, Jeffrey Goldberg, says that he was given an invitation, like to text it to you. You've been invited to join the group so-and-so. And this group was called Houthi Attacks. And it contained 18 different members of the National Security Council and the Trump senior advisors. I mean, we had everybody from the CIA director to the vice president to the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense. I mean, all of them. So these folks are all in a Signal, and he says he's watching it for days. At first thinking it wasn't real, but he didn't tune out, did he? So at no point, apparently, did he get in touch with somebody and say, hey, I got a weird thing going on. Are you guys texting about the Houthis right now? Excuse me, sir, why would you say that? I need to speak to someone, please, and let them know that I've got some information that does not appear to be meant for me. He never did that. But Phil, he's a member of the media. He has a right to develop his story, does he? Does he really? When it involves life, limb, or property, when you have the ability to prevent tragedy, when you've got classified information that you're accidentally accessing and you know you're not supposed to, well, maybe you'd have a duty to say something at that point. He didn't. In fact, what he said was, well, you know, I wasn't sure this was real. Bull crap. He already knew it was real. He was staying tied into it like he was literally just glued to the TV screen. I mean, he couldn't take his eyes off of it. Well, apparently, he says he sat in his in his car for a couple of hours on the day when the Houthis were supposed to be bombed, according to what had been said in the Signal text. He says that what happened was a dialogue was going back and forth. And what it really shows was a highly engaged group of people that were all swapping information and saying, I agree with this. We should advise POTUS sometime soon. Yes, I agree with that. Let's move on it this way. However, I disagree with the idea of doing it like this. And even Vice President Vance said, I'll be a member of the team, but I'm letting you know behind closed doors that I don't agree at this point. He felt like we were rescuing Europe, and he didn't want to do that. All that to say, highly engaged group of people. The press guy is still watching. And then, oh, by the way, a lengthy text from Hegseth comes through on the Signal app, and it gave more details. He says it involved operational details about future strikes. He claimed that there's no way in the world that what he had would have been considered open source. He felt like he had something that, in his words, quote, an adversary with access to what was written could have harmed U.S. military and intelligence officials abroad. And he didn't say anything. Interesting. And then he sat in his car and he waited to see what was going to happen. And sure enough, about the time when it was supposed to be happening, he started seeing stuff on social media about bombs going off in Yemen, Houthi rebels being bombed. All right, that's where we are. And then the fallout began because he published the story. He didn't go and say, hey, you guys got to take me off this text, man. I don't think you realize you're texting me right now. And the question is, how did he get invited? There's several layers to talk about here. How did he get invited? Is anybody going to be held accountable in terms of punishment? And I don't mean like not being held accountable, but is anybody going to be punished for this? And next, what are Democrats saying about it? And Next, was there truly any classified information? How did he get invited? You looked up something earlier.
So this hasn't been confirmed, but it's the best hypothesis I've seen so far. And props to Ben Shapiro is the only person I've seen point this out. But on the Signal app, obviously it's just kind of like any other messaging app where it'll have the initials of the person, like JG, whatever. So what he pointed out is, and this makes sense, they probably tried to add Jamison Greer, who is Trump's top trade negotiator, to the chat, and accidentally added Jeffrey
Goldberg.
Jeffrey Goldberg, who also has the initials JG. So I'm assuming either Waltz or one of Waltz's staffers or something just went through and saw JG, click, and did not look and see who the actual JG was.
That's possible.
Yeah, so I think that is the best hypothesis. Like I said, it's not been confirmed, but I think that is the best hypothesis I've heard so far as to how that, because you have to send somebody an invitation and then they have to accept. So I don't know. I think that is the best hypothesis I've seen so far.
Okay, here's a problem. That very well may be the way it worked. Because the President of the United States earlier today, when he was questioned on it, President Trump said, we know who it was. It was somebody on Waltz's staff. He said that. That's POTUS saying that. So Trump is now fully aware, obviously, and he's saying, we know who it was. It was somebody on Waltz's staff. Okay, and what you just said sounds very plausible. Except I want to know why somebody on Waltz's staff had a Signal invite app or had a Signal invite address for Jeffrey Goldberg. There's that question.
Yeah. So
why do you have him in your secure Signal Rolodex?
Yeah.
What else are you sending him by secure Signal drop? So I bet that question is going to get asked.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, Joe Blow, Joe Snuffy the ragbag, who did that thing earlier you shouldn't have done. I got to ask you, how is it you happen to have Jeffrey Goldberg's Signal address? Anyway, I agree. I think that's probably what happened. Anyway, I don't think for a second that Mike Waltz said, hey, don't tell anybody, but I'm going to include you in a chat, and we'll all be able to see you there, but no one will know it's really you. I don't think that happened.
And by the way, that's not excusing that they should have gone through and double checked.
Yes.
But I think that is what happened. Although, the staffer should have been like, is this the right JG?
That's the how, but it's not the why.
Yes.
The why seems like it was a case of negligence.
Yes.
Negligence can get people killed. You can have negligent homicide. You didn't mean to kill them, but you did because you were acting negligently. Well, the same is true here. You may not have meant to add the reporter, but you did because you weren't paying attention to your job. The White House has confirmed it. This actually happened. The White House did confirm that while they were still searching for how this happened, they are confirming that it was real. The White House is also saying today, and Tulsi Gabbard testified before Congress this morning, that this was not considered to be secret information, that the bulk of it they would reference in those text messages said, see the high side, meaning go to the red side if you want to see the plans in detail. I still think it was dicey. I still think it was a breach of protocol, and I still think that it was potentially putting information into a venue that was less secure than what that information required. I really do.
Definitely a big and bad oops, but I don't think it was a leak of classified information oops, because like you said, they mentioned the high side channel where the actual classified information was. You can go here to find that. This wasn't some rinky-dink group text like, hey guys, let's all this classified, it wasn't that, but it was still a bad oops.
Well, Jeffrey Goldberg hates the Trump administration, which is interesting. He says, what I will say in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of this Signal conversation is that Hegseth's post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing. Let me point something out here. Again, if he felt that way about it, he had a duty, in my opinion, to say something. Well, Phil, he's a member of the press. He has confidential sources. This is not a confidential source. This is stumbling into a place. This is like walking into a room and realizing you're not supposed to be there. It's like literally walking into the bank vault and realizing you're not supposed to be there. You're with other people's stuff. You don't do that. You step back out, you apologize, you make yourself known, and you walk away. He didn't do that. He didn't have somebody coming to him with a special leak. Look, I got something for you. Go ahead and report it, but don't say where you got it. No. He doesn't have the protections of anonymity on this one. He got added by mistake, and he took advantage of it. He said, by the way, and we just saw it up on the ticker a little while ago on CNN, that he says there's more to come. What does that mean? That means he's staging it now. That means that a part of what he's doing is putting out what he wants to put out to draw the reaction so that he can come back with more story to string it out and get more clicks. That's exactly what he's doing. So part of me also, here's another question I have. First of all, this never should happen again. Now, let me make sure that all y'all hear me say this. Having worked in the TS, SCI, SAP environment, I will tell you right now, this needs to get fixed. It needs to get fixed hard. Somebody is going to wind up having to get reprimanded and maybe even lose their job, and I hate it for them, but somebody's gonna. And then the other part of this is it needs to never happen again, and there need to be some more serious protocols in place. That being said, I also can't help but wonder this. Is it possible this was intentional?
Yeah.
Is it possible that they want a psyop out there, and they were also, here's how counterintelligence works. People don't realize, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard said most recently, they were looking at Pentagon leaks. They were going to internalize their reviews to find the leakers in the Pentagon. They were going to be doing certain things to find. Is it possible? Because counterintelligence, what you do is you feed out information and you see where it goes. So then you can go back and source it to see whether or not the information that you intentionally gave out, that source is who transmits it to the enemy. So let's say, for instance, that the Atlantic had decided to make sure call Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. She loves the Houthis. She's constantly touting them. Tell her I got a little something she might want to know. If that had happened, I'm not saying it didn't, but who knows it did. But if that had happened, then they would know for a fact Jeffrey Goldberg's the guy doing this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, but okay. Did it stop the airstrike? No. Did anybody lose their life besides Houthis? No. But the truth of the matter is somebody's going to have to start wondering whether or not what we are seeing is an intentional counterintelligence effort or maybe even a PSYOP effort to try and make sure that the other side knows we know what you know.
It's possible. I mean, I think maybe initially Hegseth's reaction to it makes me think otherwise. I think that was like, I don't know if you saw the video of his genuine reaction.
He was pissed.
Yeah, he was very much pissed.
He was also pissed and he went into defense mode.
Yes. So that makes me think maybe not, but that's a very possible theory.
More to come on it. I got a little more on this when we get back, and I want to hear some of y'all's feedback. Some of y'all worked in TS environments, and if you ever worked out in counterintelligence, I want to know, would you see this as being an intentional drop? Is this an intentional effort to try and root out a source? I'm curious. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, so back from the break here, heading into this topic some more, the loose lips sink ships thing. We got a screw up. We got a screw up. It was bad. It needs to not happen again. I see Yellow Dog Mike is still listening. Yellow Dog Mike, the cure for your situation is to continue listening to the show. So glad you're there. He wants to know if we want some cheese with our wine. He says we're writing late night comic material. Which part do you disagree with, Yellow Dog? Call in and actually talk. It'd be great. But here's the bottom line. This has to get fixed. And I want to know, you know what? We'll never know. We'll never know if it's intentional. We'll never know if it was a psyop or a counterintelligence scam. What we do know is this: the Atlantic guy held on to it, didn't say anything about it. Now he's enjoying writing stories about it. In the end, the airstrikes went off. Houthis are getting trashed. Somewhere along the line, though, someone's going to have to wind up paying some accountability. Michael Waltz, the Democrats are going crazy right now. And by the way, they've been looking for something. They have been so desperate for something.
They've been getting pounded.
They've got nothing. Their whole mantra is hate Trump, bad Musk.
Yep. And they've grabbed a hold of this, and it's like, oh, finally something.
Oh, good. Even the never-Trumpers, David Frum is out there. Well, it's time for Michael Waltz to be fired or resign. Shut up. Here's the end result. Someone is probably going to wind up losing their job or at the very least being reprimanded, unless, of course, we find out later on it was intentional all the time. Tuberville, 1819 News has a piece on this. Even Tuberville was asked about it. He was asked as a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee by CNN's Manu Raju, was it a mistake and should it get corrected? He said, well, it's a mistake. He says, we make mistakes. I don't know how it happened. He said it might have been a communication problem in the comms department, but we can't put the blame on one person yet. And then he goes on to say, Pete Hegseth's going to have to get it corrected. He says something went awry here, and he said basically it's a pretty scary situation. So, Republicans are not running away from this. The funny thing is, though, the Democrats are running to it. Because all we have to keep doing is going, Hillary server, Hillary server, Hillary server, Hillary server, and they don't know what to do with that. Because that was not a big deal. That was okay that she had her server hard drive destroyed with a hammer. That's okay that she had a server at all. Oh, by the way, if you remember, wasn't Joe Biden also using a non-secure email with a fake name so he can communicate with people? For the love of God, people, at least be consistent in your messaging. How about that?
Those are Democrats, Phil.
Well, that's true. I don't know what I was thinking. I do think Pete Hegseth's response was initially over the top. First thing he did was lash out at the Atlantic guy and try to make it all about him. The Atlantic guy bears some responsibility. He does. Once you have it, you have a duty with what you have, all right? He doesn't bear responsibility for being tagged in it, but he bears some responsibility for what he did with it. That being said, Pete Hegseth, I think he got a little bit, he got overly defensive and leaned in hard on the situation, trying to discredit the journalist himself, which I'll be honest with you, if you're paying attention, the Atlantic is a hack for anything. It's a shill for the Democrats. Trump says he's not planning to fire Michael Waltz. I won't even bother going into that in detail. Speaker Mike Johnson says Waltz should also not be fired. However, Democrats story here on Time Magazine. Phil, did you go to Time Magazine? I did. I go to these places so you don't have to. Time Magazine says a bombshell report that top national security officials for President Donald Trump discussed their war plans in a private group chat. Accidentally included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic has elicited fierce criticism from Democrats and media commentators. And rightfully so, but the reality is this. We have to look at several things. Have they identified it? Yes. Are they taking corrective action? Yes. Have they owned up to it? Yes. Have they also, oh, by the way, said that the mission went off without a hitch? Yes. Do we know if there's any additional spillage? We don't. Was it a bad situation, though? Yes. Please don't let it happen again. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're coming right back. We're moving to the next. I'll take some text messages, then we'll jump into the Dems being in disarray. How about that, Yellow Dog? Your story. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, talking about this show goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to that loveliest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching across the border to what has now been renamed, thank goodness, Fort Benning, Georgia. And oh, by the way, big old chunks of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right. Hey, listen, I got a ton of text messages. Let me catch up on some of those real quick before we switch gears. Dave from Capshaw, Alabama. He says, if my texture will stop buffering, all of a sudden, okay, here we go. He says, regarding loose lips, he said, I'm still waiting for Shillery to get hers. Yeah, Shrillery, because she's Shrillery. That's hard to say. Yeah, Dave, I totally agree. John C. from Madison says, man, the texture's going slow all of a sudden. Is yours working over there?
No, mine's buffering too.
Says, I was in Saudi Arabia just before 9/11. I got back 3 months before 9/11. We were able to call home twice a week, talk to family. Fortunately, we didn't have to use communications blackouts, but we definitely had to be careful what was said. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Robert from Athens says, Dear Colonel Phil, I admit that I have a suspicious mind, but this signal leak sounds like a functionary in IT putting the editor from The Atlantic into a top-secret communication just to embarrass the Trump administration. Never underestimate the vindictiveness of a liberal, even those with a TS clearance. Yeah, a.k.a. Vindman, who, to me, still to this day, deserves something for what he did.
That's a possible, too, of somebody in there that... I mean, I don't know how a liberal would have gotten in at that position in the first place. You know, I feel like they would have vetted some of those people out before. Like, if a staffer had an agenda, I figured I find it hard to believe they would let that get somebody like that to get in that position.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Now, of course, Vindman had his position, but Vindman was assigned there by the military. But if this was all right, the bottom line is this: somebody in that office, for some reason, had the ability to invite the Atlantic editor, meaning they must have communicated with the Atlantic editor before and still had them in their contact list on Signal. Makes you wonder. But then the other point is, if it was intentional, if this was somebody going, you got to know this stuff, man, I'm going to send it to you. If that really happened, they need to make that known. Let's go ahead and make it known to the world, make that person a poster child for how things are not going to be done from now on. The fact that they haven't done that yet is telling to me, I think it's going to wind up being a case of negligence and a failure to follow protocols. Jeremy from Madison, why didn't you say thank you for giving me this opportunity to oversee this example of our government at work? I think it's going to make a great story. Let me know when I can publish. What?
He's saying, why didn't Goldberg say that?
I felt like I was reading somebody else's text. Okay, yeah. So I see. So okay, why didn't Goldberg say thank you for giving this opportunity to oversee? I get it. Okay. And let me know when I can publish. Yeah. That's a great question. I'd be interested to see if Goldberg's going to come back with something else. So he says he is. He says there's more to come, which tells me now he's stringing the story out. Is he going around and getting other sourcing? Is he going around and is he actually have more information he's going to drop? Is he going to say, actually, Michael Waltz and I used to communicate on Signal all the time back in the day? I mean, what's he going to do? I don't know. And I don't know for a fact, but I do believe that the phones they all use are also not the normal phones. Anyway, David from Buc-ee's says, Phil, you never heard about this happening during the Biden administration because the Biden administration never did anything requiring state secrecy. Either that or they just, they already knew that low-level functionaries were running everything anyway. Allie from Athens says, Colonel, is it possible this was intentionally planned? There you go. Is it possible this was intentionally planned in some way to leave Hexeth out of the loop so that his outrage could be genuine? That would be a deep fake of the first order. Yeah, I don't think they would have left him out if it was going to be a deep fake. I think they would have said, close hold information. We're going to do one thing here. This is part of the counterintelligence coup. Make sure you guard your information. All right, Pete, you ready? Say the thing. I could see that happening. I don't know. Jerry from Decatur says, Phil, don't forget secrets can be for sale and prosecuted as treason. That is true. I don't know if this classifies or qualifies, but there. We're getting an internal server error on right now on the texting line. Let's see if I can keep it going. Jenny from Decatur. Buffer. Go ahead.
She said Hillary deleted 30,000 subpoenaed emails and walked, but Trump officials are already in front of a Democrat Senate Inquisition? ?
Yeah, it's by the way, it's not a Democrat Inquisition. It's the media, which is a version of the same.
Well, no, did she Gabbard and
yeah, but a Republican chairman though.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, but yeah, they're gonna ask their questions, but the truth of the matter is, now it's making me log in to.
I can keep going if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Herb from Gurley says the offending party should take their medicine according to the applicable rules and laws. Then the Republicans can say this is what should have been done to Hillary Clinton instead of sweeping her actions under the rug.
It may have just texted you a code. That's classic. All right, man.
Nathaniel from Huntsville says this was the result of amateurs at the top. I think Gabbard and a few others with deep experience should have squashed this from the start, but I'm sure there's immense peer pressure to get along. I think Hegseth is taking more responsibility and getting a statement out ASAP would have gone a long way. Attacking the press in this way makes the admin look weak, and it's obviously a true story of public interest. I think these guys get a freebie, but it's a shame to use it up so early in the administration.
Hey, give me that code, man. I got 16 seconds to type it in. Just go ahead and write it down and tell me what it is. I'm gonna get my texter back. Darn. See, they can do Signal with secrets, and I can't even keep my. What did you just write to me?
Maybe we need a Signal text line. If we get some verified people in here to text.
I think I got it in time. Let's see if I actually have it. This is amazing. We're actually in real time. We're unable to even text with people, and yet in the National Security Council they can actually put stuff on Signal.
Are you back in?
I just tried. It's like it's buffering.
Well, Tom with all the kids says back in the days when you could edit your own profile and email, Vindman's brother, the lawyer, had his UIC listed as WOKE1. Woke one.
Mm-hmm. No kidding. That's classic.
And then Lee from Huntsville says this smells like a setup, IT or otherwise.
It does smell like a setup, but right now they're not saying that. I think either A, it was a counterintelligence op to see if anything would get out, or B, it was going to wind up being a string case of negligence, even to the thing of being recklessness. I mean, negligence and recklessness have different meanings under the law. Negligence is something that, is just like inadvertent. You shouldn't have done it. If you've been acting reasonably, it wouldn't have happened. Recklessness is when, with complete disregard for the outcome, you just did stuff. I don't think it's going to be reckless. I think it's going to be negligent, if at all. All right, listen, we're going to move on to the next topic. So the Dems are in complete disarray. That's the topic. I could stop there and it would just still be true.
The title says all.
The title says all. The Dems are in complete disarray. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but there's a poll that came out. It's a real poll. Quinnipiac has a poll that came out about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. 21% of voters approve of the way the Democrats in Congress are handling their job. 21%. This is epic. That means they got a 68% disapprove and 11% with no opinion. Okay, 68% of people polled said Democrats in Congress are not doing a good job. All right, how about this? What if we just poll just the Democrats? It's Quinnipiac. They can do that. Quinnipiac polls and says, as of Democrats, it only goes up to 40%. They're only getting a 40% approval rating from their own people. 40% of voters on the Democrat side are approving. It's what the Quinnipiac folks are calling a sobering slapdown of historic proportions for Democrats in Congress. Their Republican counterparts are taking a victory lap as Democrats are trying to get their footing. That's an epic description of where we are. But what it also shows you, though, is this is not just us Republicans going, well, Democrats bad. That's not it. This is Democrat base saying our Democrats are bad. And the infighting is of epic levels right now. We're watching as the Democrats are literally coming apart at the seams. They don't have leadership. They don't have messaging. And if you don't have those two things, what do you have? So you can go ahead and try to live on hate and anger. You can go ahead and have a talking point of billionaires and, you know, and whatever else. It's sending you a code again, bro. Just write it down in the back of this for me.
Gotcha.
Write it in English this time.
You're not the one to talk.
If y'all could have seen the hen scratching he just tried to give me a moment ago.
The chicken scratch.
It didn't send it to you? It's come on. This is nuts. We got technical difficulties, which is so ironic. You know what happened? They heard that we were talking about the signal thing, and they shut down our simple texting.
We got hacked. Yeah.
All right, tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to come back with Dems and Disarray. Let's take a break right now. Maybe I can get my texter back while we're offline. That'd be awesome. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Man, just making common sense like a superpower, giving you all the truth you can slap on a bumper sticker. That's what I'm saying. So Lee from Huntsville texting in. She heard me telling you about your chicken scratching. She says, Phil, please, you have attorney. And now my texture's buffering again. What does she say?
She said you have attorney chicken scratch so bad. LOL.
Lee, I thought we were friends. Anyway,
We and you both have handwriting only we can read.
I admit, I am not so blind to my own handwriting that I recognize every once in a while I can't even read it myself. All right, so we're on number 2 of the Triple Dipper. The Dems are in disarray. Y'all, they are. I told you about the Quinnipiac poll. So this Quinnipiac poll, by the way, I got a piece that I pulled off of another website talking about it. They polled over 1,000 registered voters. Only 21% of them overall approve of how Democrats are doing. It's the lowest approval rating, by the way, in the poll's history dating back to 2009. So you're talking about we're at a 16-year low. 16-year low. Only 21% approve, and they have a 68% disapprove. The rest are undecided. Who are the undecided? I don't know. I guess they're not paying attention. According to the poll, it says, breaking down the party numbers by affiliation, 40% of registered Democrats approve of their lawmakers' performance. They're underwater even with their own people. That's the problem. Literally underwater even with their own people. But you have to look at it and go, well, is there a way up? There was a separate survey done by Survey USA. 1,705 registered voters. Has even further challenges, they say, for Democrat lawmakers. Survey found that only 22% of Democrats believe their elected officials are even standing up to Trump the right amount. 60% feel they're not doing enough. So, I mean, here's the thing. Registered Republicans are typically right now at 79% approval of their own lawmakers' performances. That's a complete turnaround. We are right now at a place where Republicans, by and large, their base is like, thank you. Thank you for doing the things you're doing. Keep doing it. Do more. Do more of that, please. Democrats, on the other hand, not so much. Ask yourself this. What are Democrats going to do to get themselves out of this slump? And I said earlier in the show, you got to be careful, Republicans. You do. Because typically speaking, people play to the level of their competition. If you've got a high school football team taking the field against an NFL football team, the NFL guys are going to play down. They just are. They're going to, not be too concerned. They're going to token block. They're going to token run. They're going to, play the short game. They're not going to air it out, and they're going to get to the point they get tired of embarrassing you, so they're going to just going to, do what they do. You play down. And by the way, even if you're considered in the same league, like, you're playing against a team that's, 0-9 and you're 9-0, you tend to play down. The same is true in politics. We watch it happen all the time. In Alabama, I will say this. Democrats have been in disarray for a long time. Like, since 2010, they have still not found their footing since we took back the legislature. Democrats have no statewide office holders right now. They have two of the 9 U.S. delegation positions in the state of Alabama. There are blue pockets like Jefferson County, Birmingham, and Montgomery. But for the most part, the Dems as a party are in complete disarray. Think about this. It's not been so long, like in the last couple of years, when literally the Democrat Party in Alabama was in such complete disarray that the National Party cut them off at the knees, turned off their funding, and told them until they changed their bylaws, they were not going to be allowed to participate in the national convention. That's like the nuclear option, y'all. And that's who we're up against in Alabama. Now, I watch what's happening in Montgomery, and I realize they have no competition. The only competition they have is amongst their own party. And that's where you get a little crazy. When you're only competing with yourself because your true competition is not competition, you can become fat and lazy, and you can also wind up basically letting people into your party that shouldn't be there. Because if they want to play at all, they realize they got to have an R by their name. I had a guy call me once when I was the party chairman. He calls me and he goes, "Hey, man," I mean, it's literally how he talked to me. He goes, "Hey, man, I want to run for county commission." All right. Well, tell me about you. "Well, I mean, what do I got to do to get an R by my name?" And my response was, "Well, how about you be an R?" And he goes, "What does that even mean?" And I said, "Well, if you got to ask, then you aren't one." He's like, "Well, I mean, and he hung up. By the way, he didn't run for office.
I figured.
Yeah. I think we would have questioned him anyway. But the reality is you got to make sure that you're watching it, because people will start trying to put the R by their name or the D by their name, depending on who's in strength and power, just to get into position. They could care less. I had a guy tell me once that he literally ran as a Republican despite having been a lifelong Democrat, because he had wanted something from the Democrat Party and they made him personally mad. And so to get back at him, he switched parties just to run against them because he was mad at them. That's got nothing to do with policy. It's got nothing to do with true politics. It's got nothing to do with a calling to be a part of a team. I mean, so watch it. You're going to see it. And this is what happens. At the state level, we have to watch out for Republicans getting lazy and fat. Now, I would say this, Alabama Republicans have been pretty good on social issues. They have. I think they have been what I would call tepid on the fiscal issues. And they have definitely been weak on what I would consider to be the big government issues. They can do better. But they've got nobody right now making them be better. They get down there in their bubble and they get comfy, because Democrats aren't going to hold their feet to the fire, because there's not enough Democrats there to even do it. I mean, there's only like 5 Democrats in the entire state Senate to begin with. And the House, I'm not sure what the numbers are, but it's that same level of imbalance. And they don't have anything. They have no clout. They have no power. All they do is they get up there and they filibuster to slow things down. But the fact is, Republicans right now have got, here's my first thing on this. Dems are in disarray. Republicans can't get lazy, because the day will come when they'll be on the rise again. And if you've letting yourself get fat and lazy, they're going to come kick you right in the pants. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Right Side Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Right Side studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3. We're glad you're here. I got to ask JP, are the text lines going? Because mine are not going at all. They decided not to work
We
anymore.
got 2 new texts. One from Shag Nasty, the atheist.
Oh, really?
Says,
What's Shag Nasty have to say?
hard to be fatter and lazier than President Cheeseburger and his golf squad.
Wow.
So
Wow.
there's that. But then Matt
He
and
really said lazy about the guy who sleeps like 6 hours a night tops and works nonstop. And despite the fact that Shag Nasty's guy was like asleep at the wheel and vacationing in Delaware every single weekend.
barely even
Okay.
president.
Okay.
Matt Matson also said, the reporter has released no real details about the text, just makes you wonder.
Yeah, I did see that he's released some details, but he says there's more to come, which tells me he's holding back on some details too. So it's a little weird. It's a little bizarre. Hey, back on this topic that we got today. You keep track, by the way. I'm not getting text messages back, so it's on you, brother.
It's on me.
You got
Wow.
text. Tell me if something comes up.
I will.
So right now I'm on Dipper number 2, the Dems in Disarray. There's 2 articles on Town Hall that I want to go into. I think they're great. Townhall.com has a piece, Dateline today. And by the way, all the stories that I'm reading are in the last 48 hours, except for the one that said, the poll that came out a few weeks ago. But Townhall.com has a piece by a guy named Derek Hunter that literally says, Democrats running around like now with chickens with their heads cut off is one of life's simple pleasures. He said, if Republicans were the puppet masters trying to make Democrats look a certain way, we'd make them look just like this. That's where they are. They are completely lost. They have no rudder. Listen, here's what people get mad. Everybody's doing what Trump says. No, there's a thing called leadership. So Trump is the top of the ticket. I mean, you guys had your period of time where you were almost into Obama worship, let's be honest. You were. You know you were. And then it was Hillary can do no wrong. And even though she had a server, we can't count that because she's Hillary. She's a Clinton. Stop it. The reality is Republicans right now are in a place where they have a team. They have the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. And they've got a guy at the top who's making waves, doing what he said he would do, and his coattails are what got some people back in office at the legislative side and the state side, and the mandate is in place. Right now, the messaging that is coming out of the Trump administration and then also being, cohabited by the legislative leadership with John Thune and Speaker Mike Johnson literally saying this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And there's some things battling back and forth. They're trying to get some of the stuff, like logistics of it more than messaging. But the reality is that we've got right now on the Republican side, we're in the catbird seat. We are sitting in the place where we have the message and we have the leadership. And we can rally around that leadership. And we've been given no reason not to. And we're enjoying it. Because God Almighty, we haven't had it the entire time. Now, Trump was a leader in the party, period, but he didn't have the ability to do the things he's doing now because he wasn't in the position. Now he is. Democrats don't have that. Who have they got? Let's think about this a second. Who have they got? Well, right now you are watching AOC and Bernie Sanders making quite, a lot of waves, traveling the nation, doing their, doing their, what do they call it? Like the anti-oligarchy tour or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. It is anti-oligarch something. I'd have to look it up.
Do they know how many billionaires are supporting them? J.B. Pritzker, Mark Cuban, the Gates Foundation. For the love of God.
Well, what did Bernie say when RFK pressed him with that of how many big pharma money he's got? He's like, only 1.5 billion. Only 1.5 billion. He's something like that. They're completely oblivious.
Did he have the hand going too?
Yeah.
The finger pointing down.
Only 1.5 billion.
Get off my grass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, who's a leader right now in Democrats? Is it Chuck Schumer? He's facing a serious crisis of leadership. He may come back and find out there's a vote of, non-confidence in him. Hakeem Jeffries, how's he doing? Mr. Deadeyes? Mr. Deadeyes stands up there and looks like he's in charge, but look at what happened during the State of the, it was the State of the Union address. It was a fallacy. He wasn't controlling anybody. He wasn't controlling messaging. They had nothing to offer except no. That's really not anything to offer.
The tour is called the Fighting Oligarchy Tour, by the way.
The Fighting Oligarchy Tour.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the piece from Town Call calls Hakeem Jeffries the Timu Obama. Piece here on Town Hall. The Democrat Party has its lowest favorability ever. They have no popular national leader to help improve it. They have insufficient numbers to stop legislation in Congress, most of it. They have a durable minority on the Supreme Court. They have a dwindling influence over the media right now because media is realizing we can't keep doing things like this. Young voters are growing more dramatically conservative. They have a bad 2026 map for the U.S. Senate. They do. That's going to be a thing. The U.S. Senate races, because they go off cycle, they don't flip them all in one year. The U.S. Senate races are staggered, and they've got a really bad map coming up for 2026. The Democratic Senate retirements are also making it hard for them. There's only 3 House Republicans in districts that former Vice President Harris actually won. Wow. That's a dim sign for a Democratic surge. And thanks to the number of people fleeing blue states, the math is bad for Dems to win the presidency in 2030. By 2030, when they do the reapportionment, it's amazing to watch. But y'all, it's absolutely well earned, because what we're looking at right now is a self-inflicted series of wounds. Think about what the Dems did to themselves. They had the House, the Senate, and they had the White House, and they imploded. They imploded because their messaging was so awful and their plans were so ill-conceived that they ruined the economy, they ruined the energy sector, they crushed our national defense, they destroyed the southern border, and they did all these things, and the American people rose up and said, no more. No more. We first got the House back with a very small majority in the 2022 midterms. We didn't get the Senate back, but we got it back now. The Dems, who do they have? Pelosi. What is she, like 82 years old? She's on a walker right now. Chuck Schumer, in his mid-70s, really has no mojo right now, can't control his own people. There's talk about him being primaried.
Pelosi's 84.
She's 84. You've got Hakeem Jeffries, who is not inspiring. And right now, the noisemakers are actually making things better for the Republicans, because the AOCs and the Jasmine Crockett's are a constant gift to Republicans. If Republicans have anything to say at all, it's please let AOC and Jasmine Crockett keep talking. Would you? We would love it. Thank you. Are they offensive? Yes. Is it better for us in the long run? Oh, God, the memes write themselves.
Did you see what Jasmine Crockett said either yesterday or today? She called Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, Hot Wheels.
She did not.
She did. Yeah, she did. She called him Hot Wheels in a speech to a group. And obviously it was welcomed with cheers, because anybody who has Jasmine Crockett come speak to them is going to cheer that. So
look, that woman has no business even being a congressman. And AOC was what, a barista or a bartender, and then she went from there to being. It's incalculable to me that the Democrats keep voting these people in, but they do. Do we have knuckleheads on the Republican side? Of course. What was the guy's name from New York that we had to get rid of? But guess what? We got rid of him. The bottom line is this. Democrats keep electing these people, their party's going to stay in the tank. That's where they are. Their map's about to get worse. Meantime, their favorability rating among their own base just is absolutely abysmal. And if they want to see a microcosm, if they want to see what happens in a microcosm, all they got to do is look at Alabama's Democrat Party, because the Alabama Democrat Party cannot find their backside with both hands. They can't. They can't pick their leadership. They can't stop their own internal power struggles. They can't even get their bylaws straightened out. They're so busy trying to have all the intersectionalities represented by sub-caucuses that they spend all their time at their meetings fighting about whether they have enough LGBTQ. It's just gross to even watch. The Democrat Party in Alabama is a non-issue. Even the National Party cut them off a few years ago. If you want to watch a microcosm of what's happening on the national level, watch the Alabama Democrat Party. And then I'll tell you this. Here's the warning. Republicans, you cannot get fat and lazy on this. You can't. You got to start owning up to the fact that you haven't been doing everything conservative because you've been lazy because you have no competition. We have got to make sure we remember that there's going to come a day when a Democrat figure will rise up and help them realign themselves and find their new messaging, and they will begin to grow again because they're not gone forever. And if we have allowed ourselves to get fat and happy, complacent, just pure lazy, then guess what? We will be back in the doghouse one day again, and we can't let that happen. Any final thoughts on that, JP?
I will say
Yeah.
one person to look out for is Gavin Newsom. And I say this because some people may hear that and go, "Oh, well, he's ridiculous." I agree, he's ridiculous, but he is one of the greatest liars that I've ever seen. You see his clip where he's talking to Charlie Kirk on his podcast, talking about men and women's sports. He's like, "Oh, I agree. It's a fairness issue, Charlie. We can't." It's like, give me a break. Like, you are not fooling anybody. He's gonna come if he runs for president and try to seem like I'm the reasonable Democrat, guys, and that smile, that slimy smile, just. He has a great way of lying and pulling the wool over people's eyes. So I would just be worried about Gavin Newsom because we see how ridiculous he is, but he's a great, great liar.
If I had to pick somebody to play the Antichrist.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I agree completely. That slimy smile he's got. And
slick Cheshire Cat smile.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why he has his own podcast now.
Yes, I was about to say, yeah.
He's trying to rebrand himself and remessage himself and get more sound bites out there so that when you do searches for him, the optimization takes you to what he said most recently, not what he used to do.
I would look out for Gavin. I mean, he's term limited as governor, so he's going to be doing something.
I think J.B. Pritzker. I think Josh Shapiro.
Yes.
I think Gavin Newsom, even though I really think that Gavin Newsom will have a hard time overcoming himself.
Yeah.
And then I still think Michelle Whitmer. Or Gretchen Whitmer, I'm sorry. Gretchen Whitmer. She's still dangerous. So but none of them right now are what I would consider to be a galvanizing central figure around which the Democrat Party is prepared to rally.
I think right now J.D. Vance, if he runs, mows over all of them. Right now, if J.D. Vance runs in 28, I think whoever they got to run against him. And by the way, like, that's just a hypothetical. I think J.D. Vance right now is the front runner for 28 for Republicans.
Sure.
I think he mows over all of those Democrat nominees right now.
And there's going to have to be a whole lot of continuation of what we're doing right now for JD to not have any competition. There's going to be if I think JD is going to be it. I think he is. It's his to lose at this point. But the reality is there are still DeSantis's and even Sarah Huckabee Sanders. There's some great candidates out there, even members of his own cabinet who may decide they want to run for something. You watch and see in 2 years who steps down from the cabinet to go do other things because they're biding their time and trying to come back and do something different. All right, that's enough of that. We're going to take a break. We'll come right back. Maybe my texter will work and I can see what you guys are saying. It'd be nice. That'd be awesome. Technology is so good. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. All right, my text line's down. Yours, how about yours? You got some over there, buddy?
I do.
Oh, what do you got? Pray tell.
Well, Nathaniel from Huntsville texted in and said, Colonel Phil and JP, thank you for having these conversations. Y'all are doing God's work. So thank you, Nathaniel.
Nathaniel, appreciate you, man. Thank you very much.
We also got Brian from Decatur texted in, and as now my texter is loading up. Okay, we said, many don't know, but if Bernie Sanders, Bernie's Vermont is only 1.22% black. I went there for a few days and never felt more uncomfortable in my life.
Wow.
So
I got 45 seconds to get that code it just sent you. So go ahead and just go ahead and don't tell the audience. It's a secret code, and we can't talk about it on the air. Just hold it up. What do you got? Hold it up for me. I'll be the judge of that. We'll see.
Well, as you're doing that, Shane from Huntsville texted in and said, I disagree. History has shown that the Dems can retake power with those same idiots in place.
You know, I'm not going to argue the fact that they have the same idiots that wind up getting stuff over and over again. You look at it and think, how do people well, first of all, Pelosi's an evil genius, I think. You never underestimate her, even at 84 years old, even while she's on a walker and having trouble. But some of the people they've got in there, like Jasmine Crockett, the squad members, AOC, the fact that AOC is being touted right now as a potential primary against Chuck Schumer, wow. I'm not a fan of Chuck Schumer, but I cannot imagine AOC being able to primary the guy. But they're talking about it. What else you got?
Jay from Hartsville texted in and said, the Dems, best reality TV out there. You got comedy, rap, dance, and absolutely no substantial politics.
Comedy, rap, and dance?
Yep, and no substantial politics.
And no substantial politics. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to watch. And I saw this one meme, and you may have seen it. Remember the one where AOC was dancing on the rooftops? Remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Her hair blowing in the breeze, just feeling lively and free and looking like a complete idiot. I think the meme said, dance like Republicans can see you. I don't know. But and Wendell, I got my texture back, by the way. We'll see if it works. Wendell from Baton Rouge says, I'm convinced that Kareem, who called in yesterday, suffers from a multiple personality disorder. I believe Kareem is also Yellow Dog Mike and Shag Nasty. Could be. Maybe so. We'll find out.
Well, Shag Nasty tuned in talking about JD, by the way. I don't know if you see that. Said, will the Trump cult let JD run in 2028?
Will the Trump cult let JD run? Well, since are you trying to say that Trump's going to run for a third term? Is that what he's saying?
Probably. But also, I think Donald Trump Jr. is flirting to run. I think what he's trying to say is that maybe the Trump cult is going to turn against JD eventually. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. I doubt it. I think right now JD looks like the guy. I think you may wind up seeing Don Jr. run for the U.S. Senate. I could see something like that. I could also see him being a vice presidential candidate, but I think that would also be a very strong name to have on the ticket, and maybe even a little too strong, if you know what I'm saying. I think that Don Trump Jr. is going to be a player in something, but I don't see him just suddenly kicking JD to the curb. All right, more on that. We're going to switch gears. The Doge doings. What is happening with the Doge? We got a sound effect for that too. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. Goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. From Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to the loveliest little town on the plains we call Auburn, and stretching across the border from there to what has now been renamed Fort Benning. Praise God, it's now Fort Benning. And oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, so listen, I gotta remind you guys. So, Rightside Media is the name of the company. Rightside Radio that you're listening to right now is just one of our productions. So we got a ton of stuff. And I want to encourage you guys, go check out our website, rightsidemedia.org. That's rightsidemedia.org. We got a ton of stuff on there to include all of our podcasts, because there are now 5 video podcasts that run through our website. We've got mine that comes out tomorrow, called Right Philosophy. We've got Right Click with Birdman on Fridays. We got Liberty Minute on Thursdays with former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson. We got the Controversial Mom that comes out on Sundays with Emily Jones from Moms for Liberty. And of course, our own JP has his Out of Right Field sports podcast, which comes out on Mondays. So you got all this stuff, man, on our website. And you can follow us, and you can also catch it in audio podcast. And the audio podcast of this radio show that we put out again after he goes live every day is like reaching epic level proportions. So big doings around here at Rightside Media. Gotta tell you, we got some new merch coming up pretty soon. So I expect some new shirts in here in the next day or two. You still got the Bulletproof Influence glasses, very cool, coffee mugs, hats, and other stuff on our merch shop on the rightsidemedia.org website. So check it all out. It's who we are. This Rightside Radio is just literally one part of what we do. But it is where we started. It is still the hub. It is you guys out there right now in radio land that helped us grow something that we are still really proud to be a part of, and don't see any sign of it slowing down. In fact, I have every reason to believe it's not going to slow down.
And stay tuned for a new podcast upcoming soon.
Oh, yeah, the long form?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just put the first one in the can. So we've been doing what I would call, video podcasts, but they're more like my monologue kind of thing. They're fully self-contained. Each one's 20 to 30 minutes long on the average, and they tend to have the one person speaking about what's going on in their topic at hand. What I'm really excited about is what you're about to see next is a long-form podcast. I'll tell you right now, it's called the Just Right Podcast, and it comes out here pretty soon, and we're finalizing the first few episodes of that right now. Lots of doings, JP.
Lots and lots of doings.
We have to clone ourselves for too long. I like to say sleep is highly overrated.
Yeah, it is. I would concur.
Sleep is for sissies. All right, so Doge doings. What's happening with Doge, y'all? You got a sound effect for that? Go with it.
Doge. Doge.
That's just awesome. It still cracks me up. So Daily Wire has a piece came out yesterday afternoon. Elon Musk revealing there have been shocking cases of fraud found at the Small Business Administration. At the SBA, he said they are finding right now that there are multiple cases of what could be fraudulent loans, up to $330 million worth of loans, he said, many of which went to people under the age of 11. He said one of them was to someone named Kelly, who was apparently only 9 months old, got a $100,000 loan. Now, here's what's going to wind up happening. A lot of these are going to be really poorly processed, and the dates were entered wrong, and it makes the age look different. If that's the case, don't we want to clean that up? But if we're also seeing stuff happening that shouldn't be going to certain people, yeah, we want to know that. So SBA Administrator, former U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler, followed up by Musk's remarks saying, we are tackling the fraud, waste, and abuse at the agency. She said, we've seen, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud go unprosecuted, and we're taking that on. So the SBA is also rife with fraudulent loan activity because it was too easy to get a loan, especially during COVID. You're watching right now billions in taxpayer dollars just being slung at the world. People filling out loan applications who never should have gotten them. And they're on it now, and I'm loving it. And there's also going to wind up being any number of those loans that were defaulted on that shouldn't have been. And if they go track down the people, they may find out, they could have paid. They just pretended they couldn't, and they got a pass under the Biden administration. So Attorney General Pam Bondi, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, according to Fox News Dateline today, says she is issuing a stern warning as DOJ begins to uncover this fraud. She said that a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. She said there's a tremendous amount of fraud in here. And Elon, she said, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your team. You've uncovered so much fraud in our government. And then she followed up by basically sending out a message saying, we will prosecute you. We have an internal task force now working with every agency sitting at the table. It's a cabinet meeting. And if you've committed fraud, we are coming after you. Thank you, Elon, she said. So the bottom line is this. We've got just an incredible amount of taxpayer dollars that are unaccounted for. This is exactly what we voted for. You know, yesterday, I was on News Nation yesterday, and they had me pitted against, I said it earlier in the show, they had me pitted against a Democrat strategist. And he started into the Elon Musk was never elected. He shouldn't be in cabinet meetings making decisions about people's welfare and whether they should have a job. Yes, he was elected. Yes, he was. You know why? Because we elected Donald Trump, who chose him for the job. Think about it. Tom Homan, not elected. Generals on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, not elected. Judicial appointments to the federal bench, not elected. Cabinet members, not elected. They're all appointed by the person who we elected to do the things he said he was going to do. They are extensions of his policies that we voted for. So when people say Elon Musk was not elected, you can look at him and say, technically, yeah, he kind of was. You know why? Because he's an extension of the policies that Trump ran on, and we wanted that. And guess what? We got it, and now he has a job. Oh, by the way, he's not getting paid either. But Doge is also, look at this. Story here on Fox. Dateline today. By the way, Doge is like everywhere. Have you noticed that? It is got to be the most comprehensive thing I've ever seen. It's all over the place.
They are, I think, at least every day or every other day, I'm seeing a news headline of Doge canceling something.
But they're like in every department.
Every like facet of it, yes. It's crazy.
So Doge got into the GSA, which is the Government Services Administration. And all of you out there that are working like at Redstone and other places where a lot of federal contracting goes on, you know what I'm talking about. So the GSA is now having all their federal contracts for consulting firms, not true contracting. We're talking about consulting firms being reviewed. And they're having to do a scorecard. They're having to look back and say, why do we have a consulting contract on DEI? Why do we have a consulting contract on LGBTQ issues? Why do we have a consulting contract on how to extemporize LGBTQ in the missile defense? I mean, they got crazy, massive amounts of big money going out to so-called quote-unquote consulting contracts. Anyway, they're being reviewed right now. GSA is having to structure a new review scorecard asking consulting firms to identify waste and savings and also, oh, by the way, kind of justify their own existence. Having been a bit into the defense, I mean, not defense, but the government contracting arena, I can just tell you, this is way overdue, like way, way, way overdue. If you look at all the USAID grants that went out, picture that in consulting contracts, all right? That's where this is. It's a consulting, we need somebody to tell us whether or not crickets can mate in temperatures that go beyond the norm because of climate change. You're going to have a consulting contract. Help us to identify, please, whether the rhythms of the moon are in any way impacted by dolphins who swim because the icebergs are melting because climate change. You're going to have a consulting contract.
Transgender dolphins, by the way.
Oh, my God. All right, you're now on timeout. Don't turn your mic on again for 5 minutes. How about this? Social Security. This has got the Dems all up in arms. He's messing with your Social Security, says Bernie Sanders. No, he's not. He's cleaning up a lot of stuff, though. So you may remember not so long ago, even the president talked about this. We have records in Social Security that indicate that there are people between 120 to 129 years old getting Social Security. 1.2 million of them, actually. We have 2.4 million that are categorized as being between the ages of 130 to 139 getting Social Security. We have another 2.8 million that are getting Social Security that are categorized as being more than 140 years old, y'all. Now, are we going to find out that some of these are actually dead? Yep. Are we also going to find out that some of these just have the dates entered wrong? Yep. Don't you want the records cleaned up? Yep. Got to do it. What they're also finding, though, is they're able to match death statistics with people who are still allegedly receiving benefits. This is a huge deal because right now, what we're also finding is that the records have not, and by the way, I will say this, Social Security can't always know somebody dies. They have to be told. There are people still living off of Granny's check, and Granny's been gone for a few years. I guarantee you. Weekend at Bernie's is going on a regular basis with Social Security checks. And right now, what we do believe is that there are a number of people out there who just need to have the records updated so that we can save hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not too much to ask, especially as we see, the discussion about whether or not we can maintain the viability of Social Security in the long term. As a guy who just turned 60 myself, I would kind of like Social Security to be around for a while because I've been paying into it for God knows how long. I've been working since I was 16, really since I was 14, but, paycheck 16. I'd kind of like to know that all those years when it was taken out of my paycheck is actually going to come back for me at some point. I'm going to keep working until I'm forever old, but I'd still like to be able to collect what I paid in. How about this? Doge is uncovering how many government office buildings are virtually empty. Do you know the IRS has 110 office buildings around the country that are about to close because they're underutilized? 110.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. The amount of real estate. So according to the Internal Revenue Service, it will spend approximately $600 million on real estate costs just in fiscal year 2024 alone, an IG's report had said. This includes 516 office buildings totaling 22.3 million square feet. After personnel, rent is the IRS's largest operating expense. In other words, we don't own nothing, we rent it or lease it. This includes a 135,000 square foot facility in Franklin, Tennessee, a 26,000 square foot facility in Bloomington, Minnesota, a 25,000 square foot facility in Mesa, Arizona, and several others in places like Glendale, Arizona, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. And you look at them and go, my God, y'all, do we have to have all that? In the era of emails and remote work, are you still saying you have to have all these buildings? Technically, you don't. I mean, if they had hired the 87,000 new IRS agents they wanted, that would have been a new thing.
But they did not.
But they did not.
And you know what? I say don't stop at 110. Just keep going and get rid of the IRS altogether. I'm just saying.
Well, now you're into a whole new category. Now you're not just into Doge. You're into like dreams now. Last one, I'll tell you this. Piece here on Fox News came out yesterday. The Senate Republican Campaign Committee is now calling on GOP senators to get busy showcasing the Doge work to eliminate wasteful spending. Because what they're pointing out is this is our message. Democrats are lacking a message. This is our message right now. This is our message. We said we would do it. We're doing it. And so the Senate Republican Campaign Committee is calling on all GOP senators, according to Fox News, to literally get out there with these talking points and make the most of it, because this is what the mandate was in part about, is restoring order, downsizing government, and bringing back the era of common sense. I got to go to a break right now. JP, tell my caller that I will try to get to him as soon as we get back from the break. And it's going to be a short one when we get back too. But anyway, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, and the texture's working again. That's cool. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Hey, John from Huntsville got the grades in. I'll get those real quick, and then I'll go to the phones. He says, Phil gets an A double plus for his nearly perfect performance, which means today's winner is JP with a perfect A triple plus for his awesome sound effect skills and for hacking into Phil's computer so he can take over the text line messages, and especially for that awesome transgender dolphins comment. He did listen to the whole show.
He did. And
then he ended up by saying, and just for you, JP, roll tide. Wow.
Thanks. I appreciate that. He gave Lee a roll tide yesterday. I would play my sound effect, but last time I did before a Bama game, we lost. So, I'm going to hold off on that.
Hit play on that right now.
No, I think I'll
let me go to the phone before I run out of time. Wolverine Dan's on the line. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Doing well. Listen, the President Trump, the last term he served was wonderful. Last year of his term, he had the COVID. That really kind of messed things up. But he was on a really good trajectory of making this country really successful.
Yeah.
And I believe that's why I voted for him again, especially since now I started to take Social Security, and I appreciate you working so you can keep it liable for me.
You're welcome.
I waited 4 years past 62 to get myself. I just waited because I thought, well, I'll wait a little bit longer, have a little bit more money in my pocketbook, and I could take that money down the road, and if something happens to me, my wife gets it. So
yeah.
Social Security is a very big thing. One of the things that President Trump said, two things, not taxing tips, which I thought was a wonderful thing, because these servers don't make much per hour, and the tips are everything for them. When we go out to eat, I always pay with my frequent flyer card, and then the tip is in cash. Okay, I do that all the time, okay? And then now with the Social Security in my closing is that he was mentioning, our president, that he doesn't want Social Security to be taxed for us, okay? I think that's a wonderful thing, okay? I believe, Phil, that you, myself, and a lot of other Americans could spend the money more wisely and do more with it and be honest with it versus what government's doing with us is they're stealing our money and they're taking it and putting it in their coffers. Phil, that's not right. If you don't tax my Social Security, I'll have more money, and I do. I take my money, and I do. I am somewhat generous with it to causes that mean a lot to me. Or if I need to help somebody, fine, I got it. Okay, but this government, not all government workers, but in Washington D.C., you know as well as I do, Phil, they're crooked as the day is long. All right, give us our Social Security. Take the tax. Don't take tax our Social Security and put money in our pocket.
Have a great day, Wolverine Dan.
See
you. I thought he was going to talk about Doge. We got to do a total sidebar on.
Well, he did talk Social Security.
He did.
That's what we talked about.
Technically, that's true. I got a brand new texter. I'll shout out to him real quick before we go. Kevin from Madison. Kevin from Madison on Social Security, Phil. He says your money will never come back to you. Your contribution is paid for other retirees. Any money you receive from the program, you paid for by my generation. Well, I mean, I hear you, but I'm not saying that my money is still in there. It's like a bank. You put your money in, but it's kind of like they loan your money out, but you still get credit for it. I get that, Kevin. It's known as a pyramid scheme, Kevin says, and I'm not arguing that point. And then John from Huntsville, another John, not the same John, a different John, says, question, what do you call a dolphin that changes its gender? A flipper. Oh, my gosh. You got a laugh track on that? Proving once again why JP won the grades today. Scott from Athens says, love the Doge, waiting on the bulldozer. I like it, the bulldozer. Got that. And then John C. from Madison says, if that 9-month-old gets a loan 20 years from now, that 9-year-old will have a bad credit rating because of non-payment on the first loan. Point well taken. All right, what an amazing show. You guys are great. Coming up tomorrow, lots of things like the Grand Council. In the meantime, know this. There are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.